So even though the title of this video is making a knife from a coil spring, I originally wanted to make the blade out of a drill bit, but whenever I was hammering on the drill bit, it always broke. I'm not quite sure why this was, but I did try annealing the blade and making it soft, but I looked at the grain structure whenever it broke, and it was literally just big grains of steel. It looked like the steel was very stressed, so it just broke really easily. So I've kind of drawn this out now into a bit of a square billet. So now when I pound it down this way, since the side is a bit thinner, it should have a bit more width. So right away, I know that this coil spring is a high carbon steel because when I'm cutting it with the angle grinder, I can see that the sparks, at the end of the sparks, they kind of explode, so that's a sign of a very high carbon steel. So I need to restore this axe anyway, so I'm not really worried about destroying the blade. And so when I restore it, I need to redo the blade anyway. You'll also probably notice at this point that I have a new forge, and a small video on that will be uploaded soon. So when forging this out, I'm just making it into a bar and getting the right thickness of the steel. I'm now going to be clamping up the steel in this vise and giving it its final straighten. So now as you can hear, the forge is no longer turned on, but I have put the blade back in the forge and I'm letting it cool down with the forge. So that means it's going to be cooling down very, very slowly. As you can see, it's right in there. And so that'll mean it'll be really soft when I have to cut it. So the bench grinder is used to remove the bulk of the material. And next I'm moving on to my belt sander to establish some bevels and also flatten out the surfaces. So now that I have this ground down to its final shape, I now need to heat treat it. So the reason I chose the coil spring was because it's a high carbon steel, so that means that when I heat it up to a critical temperature, meaning the temperature that it no longer sticks to a magnet, and I dip it into oil and rapidly cool it, it'll change the structure of the steel, basically creating lots of stresses into it, and that'll make the steel really hard, so that the edge doesn't fold over on itself. So what I'm going to be using to rapidly cool the blade is a mix of motor oil and peanut oil. So since it's always below zero in my area, when I tried to pour out the motor oil, it just came out as a sludge. So I had to use a blowtorch to heat it up a little bit and turn it more liquid. So I know now that this blade is heat treated because when I take a regular old rat tail file and skate it across the blade, it skates across and the file doesn't really dig in at all. But when I use the file on the part that didn't get heat treated, which is the back right here, it digs in and you can hear that it sounds much deeper. So I now need to temper the blade. And to temper it, I'm going to be putting in my oven at 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. And at the end of the tempering, I should see the blade turn into a golden wheat color. So after letting this sit in the oven at 400 for about 45 minutes, you can now see that golden wheat color that I was talking about. So the final steps for the blade are to add the final bevel and to sand it up. So since I didn't need all of that tang, and that part of the rod was kind of bent a little bit and not straight, I decided to just cut that off. And now for the final grit, I'm going to be doing a 1000 grit finish. So that's one side done, now I need to do the other. So now you can see the knife is really mirror reflective on both sides. So now the final step is to sharpen the blade, and I'm going to be doing that in part 2 of the video, which should be up soon. I've already got a pretty good start on the handle for this knife, so the video of that should be up pretty soon.